Did you know that a single movie trailer can basically decide the fate of a movie? For Snow White, a drama ensued in the form of one trailer that took what would have been Hollywood's biggest movie of the year from highly anticipated to internet controversy. Even before the movie's release, the trailer sparked skepticism from viewers who expected to see casting, dialogue, and thematic changes, and proved just that as viewers expressed disappointment over the finished film. It instead created a frenzy for intense discussions on what audiences really want from a remake. Could a single minute of footage really be enough to ruin a movie before it ever screens? Could it also be reflecting more problems with contemporary cinema? Disney has come under fire from both critics from across the internet for their treatment of the classic Snow White when they released the latest trailer of the upcoming live-action version of the film. Very quickly, the trailer became a flashpoint for fans, getting over 850,000 dislikes and just 70,000 likes for what many felt were creative decisions that ignored the beloved legacy of Disney's first animated film. Disney's portrayal of the beloved characters separate from other great films in the series, and their treatment of casting and storytelling drew harsh criticism in the comments section. Perhaps among Disney's main gripes were the decision to replace those original seven dwarfs with seven magical creatures, seeming to muddle the uniqueness of the dwarfs in the animated classic by turning them into less focused beings. The change followed actor Peter Dinklage's public attack on Snow White's traditional portrayal of dwarfs, which he called outdated and also backwards. To that end, Disney updated the dwarfs to be fantasy-inspired creatures intended to serve as a representation of diversity, otherwise perpetuating stereotypes. This was seen by many fans, however, as a misguided attempt to be inclusive, removing opportunities for dwarf actors and ignoring the certain charm that these characters added to the story they were in. Removing or reimagining the dwarfs would be hardware. At the same time, the backlash to the fact the new characters were being used with CGI graphics was also strong, with many taking issue with the graphics being low quality. Viewers felt that the CGI characters in a live-action film looked too distractingly artificial, leading only to an added sense of disappointment. Remove some of the magical realism in a story set to be about a real-life fairy tale. Replace live-action actors with CGI characters that now seemed more like abstract concepts instead of grounded characters. At a time when Disney is a storied animation studio, viewers were angry that Disney wasn't able to make the dwarfs' portrayal more polished and respectful, and that a live-action remake of the film had the resources to have the dwarfs more authentically represented. As the actress cast as Snow White, Rachel Zegler, openly showed her disdain for the original 1937 animated movie, any love the trailer generated for Snow White and the River of Fire was beginning to fade. Of the film's central romance, Zegler has previously labeled it as both weird and creepy, and not too connected to the values of the classic tale. Snow White's story, she said, was in need of a rewrite that fit with modern interpretations on gender roles. But fans complained that the comments absolved the original film of its essence, which celebrated innocence, kindness, and fairy tale romance. But Ziegler's statements were seen by many as a sign of Disney's disinterest in the legendary Disney magic that generations loved. Hard sell for fans who viewed it as the timeless fairy tale equivalent of a perfect love story in the form of Snow White's. Zegler's comments also underscored a larger trend that some fans feel Disney has been following: the perceived need to modernize classics by overhauling their characters and plots to appeal to current social and political views. In recent years, Disney has reimagined other iconic stories, such as The Little Mermaid, to reflect modern values. But many fans argue that, instead of respecting the essence of the original story, these remakes are overcorrected by altering core aspects, sometimes losing what made the originals beloved. The Snow White remake seemed to strike a nerve, becoming a symbol for fans who felt that Disney's changes had finally crossed a line. This tension goes deeper than casting and character choices. To fans, it represents a shift in Disney's approach to storytelling, where audience nostalgia is leveraged to sell tickets, but the spirit of the stories is fundamentally altered. It feels to some that Disney has increasingly relied on virtue signaling rather than capturing the timeless wonder that characterized its earlier films. This approach alienates many longtime Disney fans, who feel they are being preached to instead of entertained. By stripping away the narrative qualities that brought magic to its animated classics, Disney seems to have misjudged its audience's willingness to accept changes to beloved characters and stories. And skepticism greeted the studio's attempt at damage control. When the backlash to Ziegler stepped in, Disney let her issue more supportive comments. But this seemed too forced for many. Fans noticed that with a more curated storytelling, Disney felt too curated, deprived of the sincerity they would expect from Disney's storytelling traditions. And this next wave of messaging was equally swift, further solidifying the perception that Disney had left its audience behind in an effort to slap on last-minute PR band-aids instead of actually taking the time to respect the story's heritage. Disney's decisions in regard to the Snow White remake ultimately showcases a complicated relationship between respecting and adapting stories for today. As Disney strives to make its stories relatable, it could be thinking too much to alienate its core fanbase by taking things a bit too far, or just seemingly falling on its face. The reactions of fans is part of a larger discussion about whether or not a classic story should stay true to its original content or add something to it to better resonate with modern social values. The latest trailer for Snow White was just too far away from the original vision for many fans who were threatening to take serious risks if it isn't right. As the Snow White trailer backlash unfolded, it became apparent that fans wanted a balance. What they wanted was a lot of adaptations, some of which kept as close to the stories that bewitched them as children as possible, when that was feely done. They contrast these with sweeping changes that squander the timeless magic of the original work and take it away from it, stripping it of performative veneers. This latest remake could have an impact on how Disney handles future adaptations. It's a studio that needs to please both its modern audiences and the diehards. Furthermore, Snow White is characterized drastically differently, moving away from fluffy and caring of the original character into a brash and assertive one. The clip, leaked to Entertainment Weekly, shows Snow White telling the dwarves their home is dirty, which some say limits Disney-innovated classic charm for a touch of contemporary feminist narrative. Tensions between lead actress Rachel Ziegler and her co-star, Israeli actress Gal Gadot, have heated up over Rachel's social media interactions and a tweet calling for Free Palestine. According to some fans, Ziegler's statement was a dig at Gadot and led to the two fanning being shut out of media appearances together and removing Gadot's singing scenes from the trailer. But some say Disney's attempt to modernize Snow White has risked compromising the reputation of one of its most famous tales. It has the divisive CGI, the new character arcs, the off-screen conflicts leading me to believe this is overshadowed by controversy and in no way connected to the soul of the first. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and comment.